If somebody from, halfway across the world can feel something special that we can generate, then we've done our job, and it's worth whatever it takes to create that. So.
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run podcast, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. Quick word about the huddle before we get into today's episode. If you're building a business, you already know how isolating it can get. You're making decisions daily that most people in your life don't fully understand. And the surface level networking stuff, it rarely helps. You walk out of those rooms with a stack of business cards and none of the clarity you actually needed. What my co-founders Jason Fitzgerald, Ross Yellen, and I are building at The Huddle is different. It's a peer advisory community built for early stage founders who want real accountability and real conversation. You get placed in a small cohort of people across different industries who actually have decision-making authority in their businesses. You meet monthly, you workshop each other's problems, and you build the kind of relationships where someone will tell you the thing you needed to hear, not just what sounds good. There are in-person sessions here in Boulder and virtual cohorts open to founders anywhere in the country. The three of us started The Huddle because we wanted this and it didn't exist. If you're at a point where going at it alone isn't working, or you're ready to level things up in your business, go to findmyhuddle.com and fill out the application. Link in the show notes, and we'll be in touch from there. And welcome back. We have Nick Dibos out of Greenville, South Carolina. Nick, welcome to Long Run Labs.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here.
Of course. Shout out to Rob, who connected us, longtime listener and zero-time caller. But yeah, stoked to chat. Thanks, Rob, for the connect. And as you know, the first question of this podcast is a tough one. That question is, who is Nick?
Yeah, thank you. Once again, excited to be here. Feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of some giants and some wonderful people that you've gotten to interview over the years. So this is an honor for sure. Aside from that, my name is Nick Dibos in Greenville, South Carolina. I am the owner of Guts, or Greenville Uptempo Sports. We are a running apparel company here in Greenville, and I am a lifelong runner. Grew up in Tracktown, USA, Eugene, Oregon. So have a lot of just track culture in my blood, a lot of Nike in my blood, and getting to share a little bit of that in Greenville has been probably the greatest joy of my life up until this moment. So I'm excited to talk about Guts a little bit today, talk about being a runner, an amateur runner at that, but nonetheless very passionate about it, and go from there.
So growing up in Eugene, you must have, popped out of the hospital with your shoes on, ready to run. What was it like growing up in a place like that?
Yeah, when it's in your backyard, I think we were, for the most part, living about 8 miles away from Hayward Field. We had a Sunday evening church routine where my dad would bring his running clothes to church, and afterwards he would do a track workout when, Hayward was the wooden grandstands, and my brothers and I would just tackle each other on the the pole vault mats while he did his workout. And so that was kind of how I grew up. And we did basket crew for all the, Prefontaine meets, or the pre-classic, and all the U of O track meets. So we were always up and close with runners and helping them put their bibs on and taking their sweaty clothes to the finish line. And it was part of what you do in Eugene. And being a runner there was special. And I think part of the biggest dichotomy of growing up in such an elite running town is that there maybe was a lack of culture around the amateur running scene. If you weren't running for the U of O, or if you weren't in town from all around the world for the pre-classic or the Olympic trials, running was kind of quiet in Eugene. They really do a great job of creating a hyped up culture during those special weekends. But I think whether it be a change of times or the scenery itself, I'm now in Greenville, South Carolina, where it doesn't matter if you can run a 5-minute mile or a 15-minute mile. The level of dedication and passion for the sport, particularly in a social format, is is kind of at a next level that I never experienced before, despite coming from Eugene. So I find that quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, talk to me more about the social aspect of running. And we've seen the explosion of run clubs and brands that have been built off the back of a community. I got into running in 2013 through a group called November Project, now 50 groups worldwide. They did partnerships with brands like the North Face and Brooks and things like that. And it was like cultish in that, you'd just buy everything that everybody else was wearing. And since then we've seen Bandit and other Tracksmith and other groups that have been product and brand first, but have grown in this fast tracked manner. And then you see brands like Pioneers. I had Sid Baptista on the show a few weeks ago where he talked about building community for Black and brown people and then building apparel for people who don't have apparel companies built for them. And so it's like the natural manifestation of like what happens next. So with all of that in context, I'm curious to dive further into your experience of Eugene versus Greenville, and now building an apparel brand yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm the kind of guy that actually met my wife running, because as a runner, I was more confident to ask her out on a run than I was to dinner. So lo and behold, it worked, and I think that's probably what we're experiencing most in. Maybe it's a post-COVID era. Maybe it was just, about to bubble over and now's the time. But, I've read countless studies on the concept of, if you're single and you're, I guess, looking to build a relationship, or single or not.
Looking for your soulmate.
Yeah,
in
looking
every
for your
sense.
soulmate. You don't do it at the bar, you do it at the run club, right? And I can't say that maybe that's my experience. I think the crowd that I tend to keep on a normal basis is more of a training club, always looking for the next marathon to train together for, versus looking to mingle and enjoy that style of time. But yeah, I think it's a lifestyle, right? It's no longer just a workout, just a pain, just a struggle. It's now the way to get together, the way to sign up with your friends and family and colleagues to do something uncomfortable that has reward at the end of the rainbow. And it's obvious if you start looking at even this year's New York Marathon acceptance rate that the demand has never been higher. And I think that's just a testament to the collective components that are charging this up, whether it be, great companies like Bandit and Tracksmith that are punching into the marketplace and doing a really good job at storytelling, and just lifting up the silent story of a runner that puts in the miles and is shooting for a time that is sometimes irrelevant. And I do think that's what we are leaning into here in Greenville, is that we've got runners in every corner, and there's really a special opportunity to be a part of something bigger than yourself and to choose to do an uncomfortable thing to get a result in whatever you're looking for in life that has more fruit to it than not choosing that.
How did you decide to make it your career, though? You were a pharmacist and a real estate investor, and now you're a small business owner of an apparel brand that you've been building for the last couple of years. What did that evolution look like for you?
Yeah. Well, to get a little serious for a second, we actually found ourselves here in Greenville because we adopted a sweet little girl named Keely, who has a medical condition where she may or may not walk, but is in a cute little pink wheelchair. And we're walking through a season of our life, understanding what it's going to be like to raise, a daughter that will be wheelchair bound while her siblings are running around and while mom and dad are running marathons. And, there was just like a really palpable and tangible concept in front of our face at all times that was reminding us what a blessing and a gift it is to be able to run. And, you know, you, of course, everybody remembers the classic Steve Prefontaine quote of, you know, to sacrifice the gift, right? And I think that's in a nutshell, the motivation is like, this is a gift, whether you don't like the 4 o'clock alarm, or you don't like the pain of a track workout. If you really have your heart positioned in the right place, you recognize that this is something special and you don't take it for granted. So coming from a background of going from medicine to real estate to moving across the country with our kiddos and having a little bit of free reign to start over, it felt like a natural choice to lean into the one thing that's been on the back burner while raising a family and doing what you're supposed to do. And you know, the book The Second Mountain, if you've ever heard of that, kind of
Yeah.
came to mind a little bit as we've been making decisions over the last couple of years, to where, you know, we worked our jobs, we paid our bills, we did the things we were supposed to do when you're raising a family and building a life as young people. And not to say that we have made it and now get to play around with side hobbies. I don't think that's the case at all. But I think what it is that maybe we have a more mature perspective on wanting the thing we push after to be intensely meaningful and to have it align just more with kind of what legacy we want to leave behind in our community for our kids, in our world, you know. And so if you flew over to Greenville, South Carolina, and spent, you know, even 20 minutes sitting outside one of our main thoroughfares, which is the Swamp Rabbit Trail, going all the way up and down through the city and the county. You're going to see gut stuff. You're going to see runners of every walk of life, and I think that's where our heart is like, let's just make this the hero brand of our city. Let's give a place to everybody here. Let's grow our wings with our neighbors, and then once it matures and ages well, in our area, let's see what else it can do. And I think that's what we're in the midst of right now, is being constantly overwhelmed with the pleasure of growing a business that is certainly capturing a lot of hearts, but then also capturing the fire that is the running culture right now. But I can tell you that it doesn't come without a lot of just authenticity behind it. You know, this is not the easiest way to make money and pay your bills. I will promise you that. But what it has been is a way to pull people together, a way to encourage our neighbors, a way to have something that says, you know, and actually, I don't know if this video will be broadcasted, but we have these
It's
little
being seen by millions.
Yeah, well, we have these little PR coins that we give out, which are pretty cool, and it's kind of a local thing right now, but we do it. Maybe it won't be for long, but when our you see that,
Yep.
little PR coins, Gut, South Carolina, we give these out to all of our local runners here that PR and local races in the county, and you see them dangling on their keychains, and darn it, they're quite proud of those. So I think that alone is just like, man, you did it, and we and that's why we're here. So pretty neat.
How do you have the diligence or the ability to focus on a hyper local space versus the trap of, okay, we've had a little success locally, let's try and build on our success and do more and sell more and reach more people? Like, I watch Shark Tank all the time, and you hear the feedback of the sharks saying, this is a nice business, this is a nice lifestyle business, but it's not investable. But they mean that in the best way possible. Like, in my opinion, I feel like a business owner, operator who is able to hit, $1 million or $2 million in sales, $500,000 in sales, while netting, at least 20% margin, you've won. Like you've broken the rat race, and you've started something that you love, and
Mhm.
it pays you enough to pay your bills. And doesn't mean it's easy, but you don't answer to very many people. You don't have tons of investors at that stage, and nobody is demanding you become $100 million business. So like,
Yeah.
do you feel drawn to stay in a mode like that? Do you feel drawn to become a business that might take some outside capital in the facilitation of growth? Like, how do you think about that dichotomy?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I do think some of those true answers are in flux and in progress right now, but generally speaking, no, I do not want to be small, comfortable, and 2-hour work week kind of status in the long run. However, I do think that there's a component of, the express or the instructions on an airplane where it's like parents, you have got to put your mask on first before you put your child's mask on. And I do think sometimes when you get a spark of success and you're excited about it, you try to just go for it and, putting everybody else's masks on first before you put yours on. But the result of that is running out of oxygen, right? And so I do think our aim is to make sure that we don't compromise our authenticity. Now, there are a lot of things that we do that probably are not scalable. For example, in every one of our shippers, we're writing a handwritten note to our customer after doing research on our customer about something little. I don't know if you've read Unreasonable Hospitality, but I
I
will say
love
that
it. Yes.
yeah, this process was adopted from that book, and I was moved by a story in that book where they had a dinner guest coming uh, for dinner that night from Chicago, right? And this restaurant that the book is based off of is in Manhattan, and they know that this guy, I think, if I'm not butchering the story, is a total Cubs fan, right? And so they have a mimic, a replica of the hot dog you would receive at Wrigley Field. As an appetizer in lieu of, say, a fancy appetizer that would be appropriate for that restaurant. And it made him feel so special, right? Like so heard and known and seen that the experience couldn't have been any better. And I think that's what we're attempting to do. And not to continue to always quote my favorite books, but one of my favorite sort of business Bibles is The Go Giver. And one of the concepts shared in that book is to always give more in value than what you take in payment. And so in understanding that the reason why we have a running apparel company is because runners are seeking an experience over anything else, we're trying to live into that as well to make sure that the experience of ordering through Greenville Uptempo Sports is almost even better than the product that you get. Not that we're using that to compromise our product. However, so handwritten note, lots of special details. If you just ran a marathon, we're going to figure out what you ran, and we're going to compliment you on your time and your effort. And it's been pretty fun to do that. So leaning into going beyond Greenville, which we do serve the South pretty well as far as our reach in this time of the business. Not just Greenville, basically all the way New Manhattan down to Florida, and then we have a decent little following in the Midwest and in Oregon as well. But yeah, so I would say we're excited about growth. We are prepared for growth. A lot of what happens in the running apparel world is figuring out social media algorithms and doing a lot of ad spending in that format. And I think that's one thing we've been a little apprehensive to do yet, knowing that we want to be strong locally and regionally first before you find our ad while you're scrolling in San Diego, California. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Unreasonable hospitality has been mentioned or brought up in half a dozen conversations I've had in the last 2 weeks. So I want to press on it a little bit more because it seems to be so topical. A friend of mine sent me a podcast episode from the A Bit of Optimism podcast with Will Guidara, who's the former co-owner of 11 Madison Park and the writer of Unreasonable Hospitality. The podcast episode title is called AI Can Do Everything Except This, Why Humans Still Win, with restaurateur Will Guidara. And the description is essentially, as businesses race toward faster systems, smarter tools, and total automation, something critical is getting lost: human connection. And ironically, the rise of AI is making that gap impossible to ignore. The thesis of the conversation was effectively like human connection will become a luxury, and it will be a point of differentiation. And so in an environment where supermarkets become automated, like the ability to go into Whole Foods and speak to a person becomes a luxury, which is crazy to think about, that these people who are, stocking shelves are a positive differentiator in a world where, you go into an airport and or a train station, you can pick up an item and walk out with it and it will bill your credit card. Like I had this experience in a train station in Florida where you swipe your credit card in, you walk through, you pick up whatever you want, and you leave, and you never speak to a person. And it just sends you, like, it just charges you because it knows what you've picked up. So going back to the human component and the unreasonable hospitality that you're displaying, where does that come from? Where does the desire to do that originate? And why are you choosing unscalable tactics to help grow your business or define your business? And I ask that because I want more people to do it, and I want you to make a statement as to, like, you're a business owner and you've chosen to do something like this. Why?
Yeah. Unscalable is probably the word that gets used often, but is possibly the challenge to be had, right? We think unscalable because the third-party fulfillment companies are never going to have somebody sit down and do customer research and write a handwritten note. It's not feasible. So I think to answer your question most effectively, it's like the business owners that are willing to be told by a bank it's impossible, or be told by, the investor or the customer or whatever it's impossible. 99% of people are going to turn away and be like, well, can't do that. And then I would assume that the 1% are going to say, I bet I can find a way. And so I think that's what we're after, is making sure that we exhaust that option until we're blue in the face. Because if it's important to you, you will make it happen. Your money is where your heart is, and I think that's where we are trying to make sure that we don't lose the touch. Because I think that if somebody from halfway across the world can feel something special that we can generate, then we've done our job, and it's worth whatever it takes to create that. So, yeah.
If you're enjoying Long Run Labs, we'd love it if you took a moment to leave a review. It only takes a minute, but it helps the show reach more people like you. If an episode has helped you think differently about your business or career, made a long run fly by, or taught you something new, scroll down in your podcast app and tap those stars and write a review. Thank you for your support. This episode is brought to you by Popfly. If you're a brand trying to reach outdoor, travel, and adventure audiences, Popfly is where you should be running your creator program. It connects you with the largest community of adventure creators on the planet, people who actually use the gear, live the lifestyle, and have built real trust with their audiences. Popfly handles the whole operation: affiliate links, discount codes, creator and ambassador collaborations, all in one place. No more chasing people down over email. You scale brand momentum, track what's actually working, and every mention comes from a place of credibility because the creators you're working with genuinely mean it. Go to popfly.com to check it out, and if you want to reach out to them, let them know that we sent you. Going back to what you were saying about the unscalable piece, I feel like we've heard so many stories of brands that or brand builders that have started building their brand by doing the grunt work and doing the things that don't scale, and it ends up defining the DNA of the brand. And it's the top down kind of servant leadership model where, you know, you're the CEO, but you clean toilets, and you're the CEO, but you respond to hello at emails. And you can't do that if you're Jensen Huang running the biggest company in the world, but you can do that if you're building a startup.
Right.
But again, look at Jensen. He was like, he came up on the totem pole of building brands and doing all of the things along the way. You look at these like comically lengthy LinkedIn bios of someone who was like janitor and then made their way up to CEO, or like intern and then becomes the president of the division or something like that. And so many of these people have cut their teeth on doing things that don't scale or whatnot. Those experiences lead them to a place where you can't train that you can train that unreasonable hospitality. It is trainable. You can't scale it. And the infusion of that into the DNA of the business, that becomes a differentiator, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine that there's an absolute art to being able to do this effectively. Have I mastered this art? No. Would that be what I am aiming to achieve? Yes. For those out there that are listening to this that have gone before me and have attempted some of these um, challenging uphill battles, would love to know how you did it successfully or failed with great lessons. So.
That's the thing. It's like surrounding yourself with people who are in the arena and have built before or are building alongside you. It's like nobody has all the answers, but it's about finding people who can help you ask the right questions.
Absolutely. Very good point.
I guess that's a shameless plug for the Huddle, which is a peer community that I'm building, where it is all about getting in a room with the right people and people who can help, again, who don't have the answers, but can help ask the right questions in the spirit of like, how do we do this? How do we do that? Well, let's unpack it and let's workshop it along the way.
That's a great idea. Have you initiated that yet?
Yes, I have. We've been live in Boulder for 2 months. We have a small cohort of people here, and we're building a virtual group as well. So we should chat offline on that, because I think you'd be a great fit. And we have a budding East Coast contingent that's being built out in real time. So
Fantastic.
We should chat on that later.
Sounds good.
Okay, so back to running. When you decide you want to build a running apparel brand, what does day 0 look like? What does day 1 look like?
Yeah, so upon moving to Greenville, South Carolina, I got connected with a group of guys that have changed my life in a lot of ways, and I think a big part of it is just watching what a grown man with a job and a marriage and children and obligations, prioritizing something that is very special and rewarding for them, which is meeting at 5 a.m. and training together with efficiency and great discipline. And so I jumped into a great, wonderful group here. And what it the reason why this all came to be was I was watching these little shortcomings of, whether it's the functionality of a garment, or, it actually kind of started with my little shout out to my buddy Blake, who I bought a new pair of shoes. And the laces on these shoes were awful, which is unfortunate because it's such a great shoe. And he's like, here, have these pair of shark tooth shoelaces. You guarantee they will not come undone during a race. And so I put a pair in there, and I was like, this is fantastic. Why aren't these in every shoe? And sure enough, I was like, I got to figure out how to track down a shoelace manufacturer so that I can make these for all my friends and just pass them out. Right. And so it started with shoelaces. It started with trying to get, the pockets right on a pair of half tights, trying to get a watch slit on the long sleeve tee, trying to get a running hat that is the same as everybody, what everybody loves, but means something when you wear it, because I think that's half the fun, anyways. And so a lot of it was just functionally based. I'm running alongside 20 guys early in the morning, like, man, how nice would it be if we had X? I'm like, well, maybe I can figure out a way to make that happen. But then on the flip side, my wife and I do not a lot of travel, but whenever we do travel, guaranteed first objective is to figure out where the local running store is. And our hope and dream with every time we attempt to do that is that we're going to walk into a running store that has something to offer that you can't find in, every running store, every online shop. And we've had a very few of those experiences, both domestically and internationally over the years. But, and so that was a part of our story, was actually going to Denmark, being in Copenhagen, pulling off the trail during a long run and seeing a running shop. And we're like, you know what, let's get some water. And we walk in and, we see Seiski on display in this running shop. And it just felt like you got to be a part of the Copenhagen running experience by owning a Seiski shirt. And so sure enough, we leave with some swag, and it was a great experience. But I think that was what started the fires. Like, let's give somebody that if they don't live here, and if they can only just touch it for a weekend, they'll never forget it, kind of Greenville experience. And so in addition to solving some of the functional desires of literally the guys I run with in the morning, and trying to give somebody a piece of Greenville, whether they live here or don't get to live here, that's kind of where it birthed from. And then and then the name actually came both inspired through Pre and our time in Eugene. But I do recall when I was driving back from Columbia with my family, my 13-year-old boy just had a cross country meet. And I was reading off all these Steve Prefontaine quotes. And I'm pretty sure he did not hear a single thing I said from across the car, because the moment I said the word guts, he just like, oh, yeah, cool, a pure guts race. And so I just sort of lamented over this. I'm like, man, that was such a visceral feeling he had. Like, it was so cool and so abstract, but also kind of risque to say the word guts. And then I started thinking about all the runners I know and the community and culture of runners I know. And I was like, you know what? Runners choose uncomfortable. They choose edgy. They choose the hard and interesting things. This might be a perfect way to sort of celebrate that. I just got to figure out how to make sense of it. And then, of course, the Greenville Uptempo Sports was birthed out of it. Also with a strategic approach to hopefully open other lines, maybe in the cycling world or beyond running. But yeah, that's kind of the in the nutshell approach for Guts at this point.
Yeah, you're talking about affinity, right? What you put on your body is a signal of what you care about. I'm wearing a hat. For those who are listening online or listening in their earphones, you can watch this on YouTube and you can see what I'm talking about. But I'm wearing a hat that says SFRC. And that's San Francisco Running Company. And the number of times, and it's like the pinnacle of the Bay Area trail scene. And so anyone who is a runner in San Francisco has been in that store, knows about that store, knows about the history, knows about what they've done for the community. And the number of times I've been anywhere in the US and someone was like, oh, wearing this hat, someone's like, SFRC, I know that place. It's an instant connection. And I've had that happen in Colorado. I've had that happen in Texas. I've had it happen in Florida. and really all over the country and about as far away from California as you can be. It happened in Maine. Um, and so to me, it's this signal. It's like why Rafa has been so successful, or it's why Tracksmith has been so successful. It's this signal that you're putting up. You know, you're holding a Dunkin' Donuts coffee versus a Starbucks. Like it means something. If you're holding the Dunkin' iced coffee in the winter, like you're a hardy New Englander. And so I think that the brands that are able to have the logo or the name be something more than just a swoosh or just a, whatever it is, like that's the holy grail of brand building and brand
Mm,
marketing, right? When you feel like you're a part of something. I'm
hmm
doing some consulting for, I work with a company called Eternal, and it's a high performance healthcare model. And um, I talk to a lot of people in Marin and Mill Valley, and a lot of the feedback from these people is like, you've created a club that I want to be a part of. And
mm,
that's just the perception from the website and from the positioning. But like ultimately that's the vibe that the brand is going for. Like they want you to feel like you want to be a part of this. They want it to feel exclusive and but you can join.
hmm
But that's the North Star, right? Like how do we build something that makes people feel something?
mm.
So for you, was it really just like you were in it and in the community and building something as a connective tissue? I see on your website you have a video of the mayor. Every city has runners, but very few have someone who holds them together. In Greenville, that person is known as the mayor. His leadership isn't loud; it's steady, authentic. It's showing up again and again when it matters most. Like to be embedded in a community, like that's the only way you can get that title or you can get into that level of affinity with your community. How did you do it?
Yeah, I think the word that is screaming in my mind right now is to celebrate, and you'll see that we're in the midst of a series that is essentially celebrating our local running heroes, right? The mayor is a great example. You can identify him by his long flowing hair and his beard while he's out on the trail, but he has shared more miles with more runners in our city than you would believe. And for some, he's an urban legend, and for others, he is actually his training partner. And so, um, it falls back in line with kind of your hat. It's like it has meaning. It's worth representing beyond just a cool brand because it tells a story, and there's heartbeats behind that story. And I think that's what I've heard it said before to use your unfair advantages, right? And so, as a small running apparel company, what is my unfair advantage? What can I do that Nike can't do? And I would argue that my unfair advantage is that I can feel the heartbeat intimately of the running culture that is around me, and I can do something about it as far as supporting it, celebrating it, honoring the people that are in fact building it 1 mile at a time, and I do think that there's a lot of value to that. I mean, I'm gonna reach around here and grab. Uh, Here's a kind of like yours, a Run GBL hat, right? Run Greenville. It's got all the actual streets of our city and county on there. And even that alone is just like it means something. The amount of times we've seen somebody leave Greenville to go to Chattanooga or New York or Denver or Phoenix and run their marathon or their race or their triathlon, they get to take it with them and sort of throw up some rep points from where they're at back home. So there's stories to tell, and to be honest with you, there's too many good ones to tell. And I'm sure somebody that's passionately ingrained in their running community wherever they're living knows what I'm talking about and can tell all the same stories. But I think what we're really trying to do is to celebrate a good thing, a thing that pulls people together. And I think as far as guts, we had spoken of this earlier, but the word that I like as far as describing our business priority and sort of mission, is that it's a stewardship style business, where we're not here for us. We're here for everybody else. And that's kind of the fun part about it, is we don't need to feel the weight and the pressure of meeting an investor's expectations at this point. We're just making sure that we're feeding the people and they eat well.
How do you have the the discipline to continue with that approach in light of the fact that like runners are competitive and there's so much overlap in business and entrepreneurship, and it's easy to compare year over year or look at growth, and similar to how you look at running, like, are you running more miles than the year before? Are you running faster than the year before? Has your PR come down? Have your numbers gone up? Like, do you feel that tug or that give and take, or have you been able to push back and have a healthy relationship with the demands of growth or running a business?
I would say there's definitely weight. There's when it's almost sometimes more difficult when the going is good than when you're scratching your head trying to figure out how to make it work. Because the imminent pressure to hire and to grow and to figure out new marketing approaches and spending more money on marketing, and then of course improving prices across the board to make sense of all the new expenses.
Right.
I do think that
and tariffs and all the crazy things that pop up that you're not able to plan for.
Exactly. And so maybe this is a good call to get a part of your huddle program, but I do think that we're probably at getting close to a breaking point where we do need to figure out a scalable model that allows us to serve more people with what we believe is worth serving. And I think maybe that would be the selfish component if we decide to remain small when the pressure to grow is just obvious and natural.
Where does that pressure come from?
I think it just comes from the demand of the product, but the experience. It would almost be like if this is probably a little too generous of an analogy for myself, but let's pretend that Disneyland only allowed a very small amount of people every year.
From Orlando.
Yeah, only people from Orlando and Disney World. And you're like, man, if only they could figure out how to manage the park well with people from all around the world, you'd be able to share a beautiful thing for kids all around the world. So it's kind of like that.
Yep.
And while that's not always the approach, come one, come all, everybody's invited into every brand, product, and thing. I do think that the reason we would not lean into that would be more so for lifestyle versus sort of leaning into that for the greater good, if you will.
Do you fear there's any risk in diluting the quality if you invite people that don't live in Orlando?
That's a good question. I mean, it's a real concern. I think it's a valid one. Once again, I think the priorities of a company will ultimately shine, right? If it wasn't a big priority, it'll be an easy thing to kick to the curb. If quality in experience, quality in product has always been a high priority, chances are that's not something that disappears quickly. I come from a background where when I make a mistake at work, being a pharmacist, there's a risk of somebody getting hurt. And so
you're killing someone by accident.
Yeah, exactly. So for better or for worse, I kind of take the same approach when performing quality assurance on a hat as I'm filling
sunburns.
A prescription. Yeah. So that being said, I think if anything, the opportunity for quality to improve may actually really be on the horizon, because when you are working in a clothing manufacturing specific industry, and you are small, you get treated like a small company. And so if you can grow and develop some systems that allow for larger ordering and stronger relationships and expansion of relationships, theoretically, on a product standpoint, your quality may be the worst it is today than what it will be in the future, because you just have access to greater vendors, greater relationships, uh, a depth of financing to fund those products. And then, to be honest with you, when small business owners funnel all of the responsibilities to a couple key people, I mean, you and I both know that there's no way that those key people are the best at marketing, the best at PR, the best at finance, the best at accounting, the best. And so, if anything, maybe the growth is where the quality improves, um, and you stifle yourself by believing it couldn't get better if you grow.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, the cost component, as you scale, your margins either increase or your cost can come down in
Mhm.
what you're charging people. How do you think about the role of run specialty and retail in the mix?
Well, kind of going back to your AI comment, I mean, you can't try on a pair of running shorts sitting at your desk at your office.
Not
Uh,
yet.
I mean, we are in the midst of ordering glasses for one of our kids, and of course, they have technology that allows you to try on the glasses online, right?
Seriously, my a sponsor on For the Long Run, Tifosi, has a
Yes,
virtual try on. Is that who you were doing
it
it with?
wasn't with Tifosi, but I have seen theirs, and it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's really really good. Yeah,
It's pretty darn good, and so I suppose you could stand up at your computer and be like, try on these running shorts. But you and I both know that you're
right.
gonna,
You want to put
if
them
you
on,
actually try them on, you figure out if your gel pockets are big enough for whatever
right?
gel you use, all the things. So I think retail plays a huge role. Plus, it gives an opportunity to give a touch and feel hype for a brand. Our relationship with our local retailer, Run-In, is fantastic, and I really do think it is a huge component of some of the traction that we've had locally. And so I do believe that there's a beautiful role in that, particularly in performance gear, where a shirt's not a shirt's not a shirt. It's very specific, and runner body types are all across the board. So, um, yeah.
Where do you go from here? How do you make decisions around expansion and growth? How do you think about a thought partner in this? Like what is going through your head on a, if you're thinking about what 2027 looks like, how are you making those decisions?
Yeah. So, we've been doing a decent amount of travel for marathons over the past couple of years, be it Chicago, Boston, and prob- probably the highlight of my experience in some of those races is going to the activations of the different running brands, where they, Bandit, for example, will take over a building and create a vortex and do all this, pretty special little moment experience stuff. And so I think that, I mean, you can tell based on the language I'm using in our interview today that I really have a huge focus on experience for our running community, and and storytelling in a way that is palpable, real, authentic. And I think that's what I'd like to see uh, be brought to our region is activations or pop-ups that generate togetherness, people coming together over the thing that's easy to pull people together over. And of course, letting guts be a big part of that, but really being the secondary feature, outside of the experience first. And so I do think that's the way that we're going to grow effectively and authentically. And I also think that if you're really coming from a place of giving value to the people you serve, then um, giving them that versus giving them a new T-shirt or a newly designed pair of half tights is way more valuable. And I believe that coming from a place like that has probably indirect positivity on the business component as well. So
For
I
sure.
think that's probably what we're going to lean into most in the coming year.
What does success mean to you?
I think I have been chasing that actively for years, and
The
um,
definition or the thing?
um, I think the definition. We have tasted a lot of different seasons of different levels of entrepreneurship and employment and experiences, and I think the one thing that we try to be as intentional and as possible with is leaving a legacy that's worth leaving, right? um how to do that in while selling hats and t-shirts, I imagine, is not easy, but if I'm gonna be honest, that's probably my goal. Is at the end of the day, all these things 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now are going to end up at your local thrift store, and that's all right. But like your hat, if there was, a lifelong collection of stories that came with whatever we were able to bring with this opportunity, then I can die happy, if you will.
You're building a product. You're creating products, but you're building a community, and you're creating a like the outcome is an intangible feeling versus a hat or a shirt that allows you to do the thing. The thing is what is the vehicle to. It's a vehicle, right?
Mhm.
You're selling a vehicle to feel something, and that's ultimately like what marketing is and what brand building is at its core.
Mm, yeah, I like it. I don't know why I thought of this. Probably a bad analogy, but it kind of reminds me of ketchup when you're a kid, right? It's like your only goal is to consume as much ketchup as possible. But it's like culturally not okay to just eat ketchup. So you got to have a vehicle to do it. We'll just call the ketchup the running community that has your heart. And then maybe we'll throw in like the chicken nuggets, which we'll call the hats and t-shirts that allow you to just get that ketchup in your
I love it.
mouth.
All right, hard pivot incoming. So make sure your ankles remain intact here.
Let's go for it.
How do you use AI in your business,
That's a
or
good
do
question.
you?
Minimally at this point. I have been apprehensive for all the reasons. I don't want to keep saying the word authenticity, but I do think that a voice needs to be touchable and relatable. And some days I do wonder if AI is more relatable than I could ever be. Um, but yes, I mean, we use it minimally for, you know, ideas and product description and stuff like that. But I think as far as using it, here, here's the tricky part. If you live in Greenville and you look at our content, you either know who it is or you know that they are a real person that's doing the real work and getting the real results and is a part of it. And don't get me wrong, I put Guts Apparel on an AI runner running through a beautiful countryside, and it looked better than anything I could have created myself. And I'm like, man, that's just gorgeous. And yet a part of me still maybe is a little apprehensive to, you know, steer away from being anything other than just like real. Even if real is sweaty, gross, nasty, sweaty, I'd rather that than polished and shiny sometimes. But I do recognize that there is a huge opportunity for AI in ways that I probably don't understand yet, that can create efficiencies and scaling that would ultimately solve some of the Disney World concept that we discussed. So I should turn that back on you. Not that I want to do this to you, but how are you using AI, and do you like it?
So I've done a lot of writing on my Substack about like how to think about this for marketers and operators. And maybe I'll link to those two pieces. And by the time this comes out, I'll have a third piece out that's like, here are the tools and the infrastructure to actually like do the thing. In one of the pieces I wrote, like step one is like using it for copy and using it to answer questions and having a disjointed lack of congruency experience with it, where it doesn't know your context, it doesn't know who you are, it doesn't know, but you just ask it questions. And as you move through getting more experience with it, you can replace repeatable tasks that you're doing with automation. And the idea is like, no, it shouldn't be writing email copy, or it shouldn't be doing these things that you feel are requiring a human to do, but the repetitive components, or the triaging of a problem can be aided massively in it. So the guidance that I give is like, go into Claude, tell it, give it some context, even ask it, hey, I'm new to AI. Ask me the questions that you need to help establish context, and then ask me about my business, and I'll tell you what I do on a regular basis, and you tell me where we can create efficiencies. And so like part two of the article I wrote, the guidance at the end was basically like, copy and paste this entire article into Claude and ask it to help me create efficiencies in my business based on what you've just read. And if you don't have enough context, ask me the questions that you need to ask in order to understand enough context. So for example, yesterday, I have a contractor. So I run a podcast network where I have 35 shows where I'm doing partnerships for them. And I have a contractor, shout out to Stevie, who is responsible for managing the deliverables and the reporting back to the brands, because I'm not a detail person, but she is. And so I get paid by the brands, and then I distribute the pay to the podcast hosts. And so I have some months where I'm collecting like $50,000 and then redistributing that. And I keep a commission on it, and then I pay a percentage of my commission to Stevie. So Stevie asked, as she should, can you help me understand cash flow and when I should expect to be receiving payments? Now I have 15 partnerships that are currently live. And instead of creating a spreadsheet and taking 8 hours to produce a spreadsheet with all of this information in it, I took the 15 signed brand agreements. I exported all of my bank transactions, and I dumped it all into Claude and said, make me a calculator that tells me when and what I'm going to get paid, and give me a ledger of what's overdue and what's coming up in the next 30, 45, and 60 days, so I can manage cash flow better. And then analyze this as if you're a CFO. And so it took like 45 minutes to go through this exercise, but I do not have the technical expertise to create that spreadsheet. I could not do it. I could probably spend, literally 10 hours trying to produce this in a manner that's as efficient as it was done. I could obviously like input all of the information, due dates here, due dates there, cross-reference this, cross-reference that. But it was done in, 30 minutes, and it was correct. And now I have this spreadsheet. And that's just one example of things that could take 6 hours, 8 hours. The just synthesizing the information and matching the information once it has this repeatable trend of, this is net 30, this is net 7, this is net 45, whatever, due upon receipt, due, in 30 days, due in 60 days, due in 90 days. It's just extracting all the information and putting it into a single place of truth that now I can go reference and say, hey, it's March 31st, whose contracts have not been paid, and who should I go bug because, they're overdue and I owe somebody else money on that action. So just a small example of like stuff that's tedious work, that's data entry essentially, that can be like totally replaced. One other quick example I'll give you. I do sales calls for Eternal, and I log those meetings through Gemini, and so it's recording. Anyway, I can extract all the information from the sales call and cross-reference it against the people who actually buy and understand signal versus noise of if somebody says something is a problem and they buy, then in future conversations where that comes up, maybe I should just address it quickly and move on versus if this is not really a problem, I should just or if it is a problem and it is a blocker to buy, I should spend more time on it because I now have the information that says like when this comes up, people don't buy. So the trend analysis, looking through 300 pages of sales call notes, comparing to thousands of customers, et cetera, like just the mapping of trends, it's more than, the human brain can do, and it can do it in 30 seconds.
Wild. I mean, that alone is invaluable. Yeah. Data processing, SEO work, anything that is otherwise outsourced in that way. Gosh, I think that's brilliant.
Totally.
You're giving me a lot of food for thought.
I'll send you those articles too. You'll appreciate chewing on those. Nick, this has been a blast. Was there anything else that you wanted to chat through today, or make sure you shared with the audience?
Well, you're always, I admire the host of a podcast, especially a great podcast, because it's such a selfless role to sit there and ask questions and make your guest feel special, which you've done a great job of today. But I guess I'd like to just hear just a small little tidbit of something that you want to get off your heart, your mind, an inspiration piece, something that's just like stirring in you that, you get to be the guest for just a second here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I raced recently and I forgot how alive I feel when I race. And it's a moment in time when nothing else matters. And it's a privilege, right? Not everyone can toe the line. Not everyone can put themselves in the hurt locker like that. I did a race. It was 3 hours long and I was hurting within 30 minutes and like that continued for 2.5 more hours. And then I finished and I was like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. I would definitely do that again. And like, I have this photo that my friend Tony took of me at the finish line with like the hands on the knees. Everybody who runs knows this feeling. And it's like in that moment, you are so alive. So the call to action is like, get out there, put yourself in a position to feel that and feel alive, because we're in this society where like, yeah, life is hard, but very rarely is it like you're on the line or you're on the edge, and running and racing gives us the opportunity to really put yourself at the edge of your limits and your potential, and it's got it. Like, we should do more of it. It's incredible. I'm still on the high.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. See, we wouldn't have gotten that out if it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is perfect. What was the name of the race?
It was a big Alta. I did the 28K. They have a 50K and 100K out there, and nice. I've got to do the 100K next year. The course is incredible. Shout out to Dylan Bowman and SFRC.
Super cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. I love that. Cool. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate getting to be here. I hope for anybody that listened in today that it wasn't anything more than super valuable. But if it wasn't, let me know.
Awesome, Nick. Appreciate it, and Rob, appreciate the connection here. That was a great one. So
thanks, Rob.
Thank you, and yeah, we'll see you out there.
Sounds great. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there.